Will you pour me just a skosh of that there? Butter's Revenge. If you don't mind, good sir.
Gotcha.
It's a new word I learned recently, skosh.
Skosh. It's descriptive. I like it. I knew what you meant. You didn't have to explain it.
It's one of those words like, is it real?
Oh, it's real, Perry.
Is it a real word?
It is now.
Okay, like, so are we talking like Perry pour real, or are we talking like Webster's real?
It's probably Perry pour real. And just knowing you as a person, Perry pour comparing to a skosh, it's probably more like a regular pour.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of This Is My Bourbon Podcast. I'm your host, Perry, and I got Swan with me.
Hey!
Hey, Swan. We're doing something different this week. I got sent these samples from the Bardstown Bourbon Company a couple weeks ago. Well, actually, really last week. And I was able to go there back in February and saw the preview for these products that they sent samples of. And I recorded a bunch of audio from it. I've never released that audio, so I wanted to kind of frame a review of these products and a short little conversation as well about the Bardstown Bourbon Company with that audio. So you're going to get a little bit of a different take on the format for the show this week. I think it's going to be kind of cool. So, yeah. Well, first off, Swan, I'm happy you're here.
I'm happy to be here, man.
Yeah.
Got here just in time.
You did indeed. Swan, what have you been drinking recently?
Not a whole lot. I just got some Knob Creek. I didn't get a pick. I wanted to go back and actually just try the regular 9-year that they put out. So I found a store that had just the regular 9-year on the shelf. Old label, picked it up. It's solid. You kind of forget how good it is just to have a regular 9-year-old bourbon because they constantly put out the 12, 13, 14, even 15-year picks. Still a good base.
Now, you're talking about the single barrel.
Yes, the single barrel, the 120 proof.
Yeah.
So I think they did away with the age statement on the other stuff, right?
Yeah. They did, yeah.
But no, it's definitely solid. There's the whole rumor floating around that maybe the single barrels are kind of dying down a little bit, or maybe they're doing less of them. But I'm not going to be too upset if we get stuck with a 9-year bourbon at a decent price point. So
yeah, I agree. I don't know when the last time was that I actually had just the straight 9-year single barrel, just the regular on the shelf 9-year single barrel. So I might have to do the same and go back to it.
Yeah, I know when I first started drinking, I had quite a few of them because I was like, it's 120 proof. I'm finally into high proof stuff, and I pick it up, and it's just cheap, good, solid. I remember it being so consistent for a single barrel on the shelf, which is nuts because when you get into the picks and stuff, they are wildly different.
Oh, yeah.
Some of them are, almost Booker's-like, and some of them are kind of just, maybe not your profile, but they're just wildly different. So it's nice to have some variety and then also have a product that you can go back to that's relatively similar every time.
Yeah, for sure. I've been kind of lucky in the bourbon department recently.
Yes, you have.
Yeah, things have been very, very. What's the word I'm looking for? Fruitful.
Fortunate. Oh, it's been great.
Yeah, I have not been upset with the things that I've acquired recently or have gotten to try. My best friend Austin was over. He was actually in town this past week for a couple of days. So he came over to the house and we cracked open a pre-fire Heaven Hill Bottled and Bond, which, we all have a soft spot for. Oh gosh, let's see, what else? I finally found this new pin hook that everybody's been talking about, the cast strength pin hook with the pink wax on top. I'm excited to try that. Probably going to do that on this week's live stream on Thursday night. You're actually going to be getting a bonus episode this week, too, on the main feed, where we're going to be reviewing 2 brand new releases. Four Roses Small Batch Select in the... Oh, I'm so excited for it. The Wilderness Trail Rye Bourbon.
Yes.
which just came out this past Saturday. Oh, man.
And the batch on it, 001.
001.
It's nuts.
Heck yes.
I'm excited for that.
Yeah, man, I'm really excited for it too. But before we get to any of that with the bonus episode and whatnot, we do have some stuff we got to take care of for this episode. So again, what you're about to hear is audio from when I was at the Bardstown Bourbon Company back in February, where they did a preview of the Pfeiffer Pavitt bourbon release. I have tried all 3 of the products that they sent us, and I'm excited to revisit them again. But what you're basically going to hear is a couple of different workshops where they guided us through the tastings of each of these 3 products. And then there's going to be a short little interview as well that I did with the founder, David Mandel, Steve Nally, one of their master distillers, John Hargrove, the other one, and Suzanne Pfeiffer Pavitt, who is the vintner, or a vintner, from the Pfeiffer Pavitt Wine Company out in California. So that's a fun, quick little conversation that you'll get towards the end of this. But I hope you enjoy it, and we'll see you on the other end. Enjoy!
All right, guys. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take you through, Steve and Suzanne are going to take you through the development of this product. And of course, that product is the Pfeiffer Pavitt Reserve Bourbon, which is the first in our new collaborative series. Our collaborative series tells the story of 2 great artists, 2 great companies coming together to make an exceptional product. And so here you're going to see, we're going to take you through how we develop that from the raw bourbon, from finishing it in the wine barrels to the final product. And it is a story that is just as much about people and working together and the great symmetry there as it is about the final result. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Suzanne and Steve, and I believe, Suzanne, we're going to start with the wine, and we're going to go through each product here and talk about them.
Excellent. Just throw me right there.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, at Pfeiffer Pavitt, we're very specific in our approach to making wine. We believe that the wine is actually made in the vineyard. And so our job is to gently cajole it from the vineyard into the bottle. And there's a lot of things that go into that. First of all, we're organically and sustainably farmed. All of our fruit is hand-picked, hand-sourced. We do single terroir driven wine, so this is all from the same vineyard. This is 100% Cabernet Sauvignon. On some of our other Cabernets, there being a couple of other, we're a very small shop, we add a little Petit Verdot, but this is 100% Cab. So when we bring it back to the winery, without giving you a full in-depth winemaking education, we need a little more time on that. We hand sort every berry, and then we go through the destemming process. We run it through, put it in the fermentation tanks. The key that I think differentiates our wine from maybe others, and also allows it to have this great approachability in its use, because this is a 2015, so I haven't actually fully released this. This is in a pre-release. I hold my wines for a minimum of 3 years before I release them. I pushed it up just a tiny bit because we were going to be tasting it and drinking it today. So 2015 for us, it'll go through the fermentation process. Basically, it's your high school botany, right? So the yeast eats the sugar, it goes through this whole process, ultimately turning into alcohol. And so what we do is we can't rush it. For some people, there is a very specific timeline in making wine. Because we are organically and sustainably farmed, and because we do what's called a natural or indigenous yeast approach, a wild yeast fermentation, that yeast is already present in the vineyard. So we don't kill it by doing unnatural things in the vineyard. So when you use a wild yeast that's already present there, the wine maintains that beautiful full body flavor, but those tannins are much softer and more approachable. So I'm not going to ask anyone to show their hands, but just as a little tangential discussion on tannins. The tannin approach, it can also be nicknamed the sweaters on your teeth. Have you ever drank anything and then you just like feel your lip almost gets stuck? Like I don't know if I like this. I'm not sure. So when you drink a really young wine or a very high acidic tannic wine, that's what will happen. We try to have that approach be really homogeneous and seamless. So the wild yeast takes its time. It may finish fermentation in 2 weeks. It may finish in 2 months. The most we will typically be is about 3.5 months. So we wait very, very patiently for the wine to finish. Then we basically do stabilization, put it in the bottle. It stays in the barrel, excuse me. We put it in the barrel. We're in our French oak barrels. We're 100% French oak. It'll be in the oak barrel from anywhere from 18 to 22 months. Depends. We'll continue tasting through. We want that nice full body. We do 3 different toast levels. We'll do a medium and a medium plus toast. So we want that tannic structure because you want to be able to drink this wine today, but you also, if you're a collector, you want to lay it down for 25 plus years. And our wine will cross the gamut of both those. Miss Kim's been to our place. I could call her out on questions. So in the barrel for almost 19 months on this particular vintage, and then we put it in the bottle and it's there for another 19 months. So a minimum of 3+ years in the aging process before we will even allow our clients to see it.
There's a question.
Yes, sir.
Do you do any manipulation during fermentation by adding sugar or?
Zero. I don't add anything. That's called cheating.
Yeah.
I'm not a cheater. Cheaters never win. They sell a lot of wine sometimes. Sorry, I'm in front of a group of friends. I'm guilty of a few things, but one thing that I am absolutely adamant is being intentional. Intentional in everything I do. This is a very intentional process what we do in making wine and making spirits. And so I wanted to represent the best of what could be in the wine world. Hey, wine's been made for thousands of years. You let some grapes sit out on the counter, fermentation occurs through nature. You don't have to get involved. Holding back and not manipulating and not doing additives, color, water, sugar, whatever, will reward you in the long term, but you do have to be incredibly patient. The honest truth about making wine is one of the keys is cleanliness. You have to have absolute sterile conditions in your winemaking facility, otherwise bacteria presents itself. And so it's really about being clean and letting the wine do what it does. Oftentimes when people will drink or try our wine, the greatest collectors who, age their wine for extended periods of time will say, how do you get this wine so approachable? And I truly believe it's that hands-off. It's that lack of intervention and manipulation. Just let it do its thing and gently cajole it. Now, the artistry on that is the barrel choices, the barrel aging, how we do that, the cold temperature and cold stabilization that will occur. I'll back up a second. In the harvest approach, it starts there. So we actually harvest at midnight from 11:30 to 12 p.m. to 6 a.m. We do it under the canopy of lights. It looks like almost a movie set. And we do it because the grapes are all cold. And we want the grapes to stay completely intact without piercing the skin and pre-releasing any of the juice. Those grapes stay intact. So I'm a Southern woman, so I always tell a story and an analogy. So if you buy that cluster of grapes at your market and you put it in your refrigerator, it gets a little of that kind of opaque, you can almost wipe the frost off. If you left it on your counter, that's completely different, depending depending on the temperature of your home, those would get very malleable. Even the weight of several clusters of that, just regular table grapes, would weigh them down, pierce the skin, some of the juice would come out. So in the winemaking world, and we're harvesting tons of grapes throughout the night, we're all hand picking it. Nothing is machine harvested. We pick only the clusters that we want and appear to be perfect. And then we have them stay cold and in the winery until we're ready for the destemming process throughout the day. So it's a very hands-on, labor-intensive process, but we like to say it's love in every cluster. So
Well,
that was a great question. Thank you.
It is exceptional. And if you can get out there and see it.
Yes, of course.
It's
Happy
amazing.
to have you and look at that. So.
I'll tell you, I think what you hear from Suzanne, this is why she's our partner. Because I think a couple of things she mentioned, everything's intentional. You're going to see that with us as well. Thoughtful, the craftsmanship, everything that goes into her wine is the same way we approach and are approaching, our products, what we're making, and that's why, the relationship here, which is one that started as a friendship over dinner, being introduced by a mutual friend, our company and hers, has developed into this product. And so that, what I'd like to do is we'll transition here. Let's begin now to talk about how from the wine, we're going to the development of the Pfeiffer Pavitt Bardstown Bourbon Company bourbon. And so, Steve, why don't you take us through the base product that we used and we acquired, and we have here, we own lots of different inventories of aged bourbons. We have some from Tennessee, we have some from Kentucky, we have some from Indiana. We all know kind of the history of, gathering and acquiring aged product because we're in the process of making and aging our own right now. So we're using a base bourbon, much like a chef doesn't always make all of their own vegetables or grow all of their own vegetables. We're starting with a base. And we're taking it, and we'll talk about what we did with it to produce this great product. So Steve, take it away.
Okay, thank y'all. And as David said, everybody knows we don't have an aged product yet, so we did source this. But one of the challenges we had was to go through the inventories we had and to pick something that would match or would marry up with Suzanne's product, her wine. So we went through and we selected barrels. What we selected was a Tennessee product. It's a 9-year-old low rye product that we used when Suzanne emptied her barrels out in California. They cannot stay empty very long. If they do, the wine starts to spoil. You have a bad product, and we put our juice into a bad barrel. So what we did, as soon as she dumped them, we put them onto a refrigerated truck. They stayed below 34, 36 degrees. We shipped them express from California directly here. As soon as they got here, we filled them with this Tennessee product. Put them in the warehouse. They sat there, and we went back, John, about every month or two, pull samples just to see how they were progressing. We would send Suzanne some samples, to get her thoughts on it. So we, as a group, as a team, decided that a year and 9 months, or about 21 months, or about 20 months, it was as good as it was going to get, or it was ready to be bottled. So at that point, that's what you're going to taste, the finished product.
Yeah, with finishes, it's kind of tricky, so you just can't say 18 months on a finish. Especially every wine, as Susan explains, is unique to where the grapes are grown, how it's processed. So starting in month 1, you really have to start doing evaluations on it sensory. I've dealt with wine finishes that have been finished at 3 to 4 months. This one, like Steve said, is a year to 7 months, so right at 19 months. But we check it every month. Susan would actually come on site. We'd do tastings here on site about midway through, and we could tell this was about to hit its peak when we finally made the decision to go ahead and dump these barrels. And we also send samples for her team.
They love that.
Yeah. And we sent each sample and then a composite of all the samples also. So our team and their team was very educated on the sensory, where this was and how it was going to turn out in the end process here.
And similar to wine, each one of these that we do, we will not have a year and 7 months or a certain period of time to say it's going to be ready. We will have to go in and evaluate that. And if we get another shipment of barrels from Suzanne, we will still have to go in and see how that's coming along.
I'd like to interject and say, at the risk of oversharing.
No, overshare.
So when we decided to do this, that all roads and connections, I think, lead to the South. I just do. Maybe just because I'm from the South. So it was a Southern person that connected us several years ago. And so when we started talking about this, they asked me to come back and meet with the team. Steve was really interviewing me. They were all trying to be super nice about it to see if we could play together. And I was kind of interviewing him too. Like, I don't know who these people are and how they're going to handle my wine. And he said, I don't really know anything about making Napa Cab. And I said, well, we're even. I know nothing about making bourbon. So together, as a collaborative, this is where this would get really interesting. So we said, all right, let's send a Cabernet barrel back. We'll sanitize it. We'll clean it. We'll get it all ready to rock. And we'll send it back, and you guys can put a little something, we'll play around with it and see how it goes. Now, we're working between...
The very first fact, we screwed up the very first two
I thought I should share. Okay. So and again, we're collaborating between, Napa Valley, California, and Bardstown, Kentucky. And so we send them that barrel, and I don't hear anything, and, what are we doing? I don't hear anything, and we get on the call with them, and they're like, it's kind of too clean.
They're dry. They smell awful. What we got to do with this stuff?
It's a French oak barrel. And they said, no, you took all the flavor. Like, we wanted some of the dregs left, like the cab juice, the stuff. Can you leave it in? I said,
she said, do you want that in there?
Like, Steve, with all due respect, if I ship you those barrels across the country, there will be hair growing out of them if we just do it regular. It's not like shipping bourbon the other direction. Okay, well, what do we do? I said, all right, here's what we're going to do. We got this plan. We're going to have a refrigerated truck, parked at the winery as each barrel finishes and we pump out the wine and bottle it. We're going to bung it, wrap it, get it on the refrigerated truck, and then that person's going to haul booty across country and get it here, and you're going to fill them. That's what you're going to do.
And what's unique about that, and I'm glad you shared it, because in a lot of cases with wine finishes, they won't do the cold storage piece. You'll wrap it, gas it, send it. Cold storage is expensive, it's labor intensive, it's got to be right there. They went right in. When it arrived here, our team brought it right out, filled them, so there was absolutely no degradation in Suzanne's wine. Now let's move to the finished product, which was the 19th finish in the Pfeiffer Pavitt barrels. And so, go ahead, smell that, taste that. And Dan, talk a little bit too about kind of that product and how that was thought about in terms of the cocktail too, and using it in the end and experiencing it.
Absolutely. One of the things Steve brought up that's so fantastic is the intention of having the two companies enables us to do this exercise, which you really cannot do with most finished products. So we have the wine right here. You can nose that in one hand, and then you can go right to your other hand and nose the collaboration. You can, really see how the flavor of this fantastic Cabernet comes through and influences this whiskey. So we knew we were using this on the base of the cocktail. Obviously, with the fruits that were listed go very well in cocktails. Often with the acid on fruit with lemon, plain with kind of a currant is just that's just an easy decision there. Also with this Cabernet, the integrated tannins that you get and that kind of wonderful finish that we had on the first one is going to make any cocktail. So when we put 2 ounces of this with this wonderful finish that you get, we know that the cocktail is going to work. So a big part of it was not messing up. Yeah, please.
How do you in a bourbon company know so much about wine?
I started in wine and cocktails, which kind of led into bourbon.
He finally made the right choice.
Yeah,
Dan's a level 2 somm. He ran a great restaurant in Decca, built their wine program, and of course brought and recruited our whole in-house beverage team down here from Louisville, and picked some of the best people regionally to join us. And so Dan and Steve, John and Suzanne, and our great culinary team, which you're about to experience some of that, are all working together in the creation of all of these products.
Certainly the experience we had in putting this cocktail together, I mean, we have, in our bar team, we have a former chef. We have general managers of restaurants on our bar team and our mixology team. We have so much experience there, so we work together. John will come over from the distillery and sit with us while we make cocktails, and
Somebody has to do it.
and give us his input on these spirits, and we can kind of build. It truly is a team effort building the cocktail that we'll start with down lunch that we used. This is the base.
Then Steve will tell us what not to do. Right? When we push the envelope too much.
Make cocktails out of it. Ice is all bourbon needs on it. Or not ice at all, just chili.
I'll share with you when we sit down my first response to them putting my high-end Napa Valley Cabernet into a cocktail. I'll say that.
Yes. And the email. Using an email or a phone call.
Hopefully they didn't keep the email. I rewrote it like 3 times.
When you see this whole company today, this company is about the people that are all part of it. Because that's what it's all the team. You know, all the fancy machinery, everything that we built, you know, slowly over time. We've recruited the best team possible here, and everybody's come from all over the country. I moved here from DC. Dan moved here from Louisville, sort of. His wife runs a Louisville School of Music and is actually her due date for their first child is today.
Yesterday.
Herb moved here. Christian and Tracy moved here from Philadelphia. Herb, you came from Florida. Of course. John came from Missouri originally and then through Shepherdsville. Garnett came from Virginia. Dan Lind, our CFO, came from London. And everybody's moved down to Kentucky, right here in Bardstown. So
I'm the only native.
Right.
But to that point, I've been in 47 years almost, so you know it is a great job, and it's something I've really loved. And most distilleries have very low turnover.
Question: You're putting into the wine barrel 110.2 proof bourbon. You're pulling out 19 months later 107 proof bourbon.
How does that happen, right?
Yeah.
So it's the lower proof of the wine that's soaked into the wood.
Residual wine in there.
That brings down the overall.
We got that dregs that she mentioned, so about 2 gallons of dregs, and then what's soaked in that wood that it gets pulled out when it gets cold again. So that expansion contraction will pull that wine out, and it'll decrease that alcohol by volume overall. And it's kind of an aggregate at that 107. So you got that 110.1, you got the wine at a lower proof, and together they come at that cask strength at 107 out of the barrel.
And John, where was it aged? Was it on a low floor? Was it in here? Was it outside?
So it was on our top floor of our warehouse. So, and we had the option to move it. So that's something we talk about every month if we need to move it down to a lower floor to kind of ease out that expansion contraction. But we liked what we saw every month in that top floor.
The great example of that too was even more severe was with the Copper and Kings collaboration, the white label, the Muscat. Was it going in like 114, 115? Came out at 94. So I mean, a huge drop because of the lower proof on the Muscat.
There's one restriction that we had, though. Barrels that Suzanne uses does not fit our warehouse, so we have to leave them out in the aisle. She's got to conform to our size. No, I'm just kidding. They were left out in the aisle, and we could have moved them down, yes, but
we just had to be special.
So they were on the top floor, and they got to see direct sunlight every day, being in the aisle up there too.
Yeah, I think this would go very good with a great steak. I did a bourbon salon out in Oxmoor the other day where I had Josh Moore, Weta Michaels, and Newman Miller out there talking about cooking with bourbon. And Josh was saying that bourbon goes great with any type of steak or beef, and I think this one would go real well with
Great.
That's great.
You know, my philosophy in the wine side of the world, people ask me these questions all the time. The stereotypical, you put a Napa Cap with big steak or chocolate or, fill in the blanks. And my philosophy is this. If you love the wine, you love the bourbon, and you love the food, they're going to be great.
They all go together, don't they?
Because it's all personal preference. So don't use bad bourbon to cook with your food, and don't use bad wine to place with your food, because it doesn't make either of them better. It's still the same. So.
Just when you thought you didn't have enough to drink, we got here.
That's okay.
But you guys, what everybody's going to see now, and we will step through this at a nice pace. But what you're going to see now is a snapshot of what is coming from the Bardstown Bourbon Company too. So you're going to see really part of the portfolio of several of the new products that are coming this year. Nobody has seen these yet outside of our internal team. But what you're going to hear is the story about how, again, our three teams, our distilling team, our culinary team, and our beverage team work together to create these very unique products. As it scrolls through, you'll see on the screen what they look like. So that is you'll see the same look and feel in the bottle, in the way we're going to be presenting these products. But that's what's coming this year. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dan Calloway here, who is going to lead this with Steve and John.
Cool, fantastic. Well, I'm glad you guys have made it to this point, because this is one of the coolest parts of the day. What we've set out for you guys is starting with distillate, then moving towards our products that are coming out soon. And what I want to emphasize before we go through these is how much of a team effort this truly was. And that's why you see John, Steve, and our entire bar team here, Randy, Sam, and Javi, we all worked truly together throughout this process to end up at the end of this line. So we're incredibly proud of what we've created here, and I think we're onto something very special with this approach to blending and crafting products. So,
what's your barrel entry proof going to be?
We've tried several different entry proofs. 120 is kind of a standard. I also like 110, 105. To try to see how.
Well, I was just wondering, Stitzel Weller back in the day in the 40s, the 107 was their standard barrel entry proof.
So we have another wheated bourbon, a high wheat bourbon that we're going to come out with. It's a 39% wheat content. We have entry proofs at 100, 105, 107, 115, and 120 with the idea on the back side if one's better than the other or a mix of the blends of those entry proofs.
Yeah.
So we have everything in the category of what we can put in the barrel.
I think that's one of the things that makes the wheated bourbons better is the lower entry proof, because you get more of the caramels and vanillas out of the wood at a lower entry proof. And that's what the wheated bourbons excel at, is drawing those flavors out, and that's what makes them special. When you put it in at a 125 or 120, in my opinion, you're getting too much of the tannins, and it's just too much like a regular bourbon.
So we did both sides. We did an entry proof at 120 with a char number 3, and then we did an entry proof at 100, 105, 107, 115 at a char number 4 on the high wheat bourbon. So we have in both camps, we covered it all right there. Yeah. So
I'd be interested for you to put one in at 107 and a char number 2.
We do. So char number 2.
Yeah.
So we also have, going forward, we have toasted char number 2 we're putting them in too also.
That's
going to be great.
And the underlying key with this is we're making such a quality distillate with this that now John and Steve can decide a barreling procedure, and it just forks off like this, and you can go in so many different directions when your core is at a high quality. So we're exploring.
I agree. This is an excellent.
It truly is.
New make, and that's why I was saying.
Yeah.
Consider the lower barrel entry proofs.
Yeah. I mean, what's great.
I think it'll make a better whiskey 5-6 years from now.
We certainly are. So that's kind of our beginning. And when you took the tour, this is what it landed at. So coming off, this is the end game, and it's what we build our foundation for these products off of. So we start with a distillate. Now, depending on who you talk to, some might say 50%, some might say 75%. If you talk to the barreling crew, they might say 90% of the flavor comes from the barrel. We are now going to move on to a 36% rye bourbon that has been in the barrel for 2 years. And the reason why we want to show this to you is to show the development that comes from 2 years aging in Kentucky. And I emphasize Kentucky because the climate here, as you've seen the last 2 weeks, 70 degrees to 4 degrees, a winter where you bundle up. I came from Louisiana.
2 weeks, 2
bundle
days.
up to a summer that is brutal. All that is activating the barrel. You don't have to do too many gimmicks living in Kentucky. You get all the motion you need something so rapidly in 2 years. So this is our product. It's not ready for market, but we show it as a demonstration of where we're going with this high rye bourbon. So same thing, you can look at the color. We've already kind of picked up a deeper brown here, moving, you know, someone to see if Christian's in the room. Tracy, here you go. What would you call that? Amber? Who's got a rich honey amber. So you can see the color we've developed from the barrel. 2 years, swirl it, and all of a sudden we're in a whole nother world of flavor that we're picking up from that charred American oak.
And one thing, this will be a base for our next product we're about to try under that fusion category. This will be part of this blend you're about to taste next. So we really wanted to showcase what a distillate tastes here at Bardstown Bourbon, what 2 years tastes like, but that 2 years, instead of picking that wheat, we wanted to pick to show you what we transform into that blend as one of the base products going into our fusion products, which we'll taste next.
So what kind of enzymes are you using in this?
So on this one we don't use any, 12%, but obviously with 36 different mash bills that we're coming on, we use.
About for this one here with the 4% barley malt, you're obviously using enzymes.
Yeah, so different alpha, beta, glucoamylase, but commercial enzymes, Saxzyme. So it depends on what customer we're producing for, is which enzyme we can utilize if we're really below that 9% malted barley. But depending on, there's one recipe we run 60% corn, 40% rye, no malted barley. So we have diazyme. We really load it up with nutrients and enzymes too. So enzyme package category, we're probably at the top with how many enzymes we use, but we also use none on a lot of our recipes too. So we really pride ourselves in being able to meet our customers' customization. So we're flexible, and we have the experience and the knowledge here to really develop a package to utilize enzymes and nutrients, any lactol, bacteria control, anything like that. Calcium, if we need to fortify the water to cut, we can do that, or we can go the traditional route, no commercial enzymes, so we can pretty much do it all in that space when we're talking enzyme packages and nutrient packages. And I came from the food industry originally, so Frito-Lay, Quaker Oats a decade ago. So we're really driving towards having all those certifications, meaningful certifications, because they actually improve your process and improve your procedures. And as everybody knows, improving process control in distillation is key to quality. So, and some of those certifications guarantee that quality. So.
Awesome. Well, so that was kind of the foundation, which is incredibly important, but it's also a preamble to why we're bringing you here. Really is to try these two new products that we're incredibly excited about. The first one is the Fusion line. The concept of the Fusion line is to show you what this 36% rye in a finished product. In this case, 60% of this product is ours at 2 years. 40% is an older whiskey, a 10-year. Are we riding with this?
11 years.
11 year.
7 months.
Okay. So you're seeing the balance between those. So we're blending 11 years with 2 years. We used an aged rye and an aged wheated bourbon. But what really speaks to the quality is that we were able to put 60% youth into this product to make the fusion of the young and old. This entire team, including part of the finance division, the culinary team, we were all right here in this room, series after series of scorings and tastings, different blends, different options, narrowing it down, voting, until we landed on this fusion product ready to release here.
We went through how many cycles, how many different?
So up front, we developed about 29 different blends with the aged stock we have, and with our new makes, even including rye whiskey, which didn't make the cut on this first fusion. But we narrowed it down from basically about 28 to 29 blends down to this blend over a few month time period. And so this actually started one night in the restaurant at the bar team, with the bar team, came down, ordered some pizza. I was like, let's get a head start on our first fusion product. And then it developed into classroom time. You'll see some of these pictures. So we, like they said, we involved everybody in this company. Most people have a master blender, a quality department. We made sure we got input from our culinary culinary team, our food and beverage team, our operations team, our event manager, Beth, where she at? She was even in on these tastings. Our chief financial officer, Dan Lind, David, everybody was involved in these classes, and we really narrowed it down. 4 classes we narrowed it down to about 3 or 4 different blends where we had a final judging to where this one was the standout winner.
Talk a little bit about, I always found fascinating was how you use the different younger whiskeys, bourbons, add different flavors that kind of change the older. So it's not all just about taking old product. It's about marrying those flavors, and that's where the beverage team and the culinary team and the distilling team really makes a very interesting synergy.
It's something I love. I mean, I think there's more interest oftentimes in a product like this than a lot of aged whiskey, because you get notes. Same thing we were doing the wine, you can kind of go back to the distillate and see those young notes that really, the barrel starts to dominate. And I love older whiskey, but the barrel is almost like a unifier as you move through time, and it adds more barrel notes, adds more barrel notes. Having a little young whiskey and different spices and things that really jump at you can really make a complex finish in a whiskey that is unique to this fusion idea of 2 and 10. So it's something I'm excited about right now in whiskeys. It is this juxtaposition of 2 and 10. I think there is a future in this concept.
We narrowed it down from 28, but there was a lot of back work, late nights at the bar with some pizza, that narrowed it down to that 28. So it was a very complex, fun process. So.
And that 20% was the first product. It was Steve's original distillate. First product that was ever made here. All of the products.
And with all the distillates that are coming out of here, really the sky's the limit for future fusion blends and things we'll have access to, and the creativity we have here. I mean, this is an ongoing series where we'll have the next blend, and we're excited to see what the next one will be using that, what we have available. I think it's
so under the fusion blend, it just won't be this fusion. It'll be the next blend number 2, blend number 3, blend number 4. So if something does good, we'll replicate it.
So some distilleries kind of pride themselves on not necessarily consistency rather between single barrels, but quality. So you guys are kind of aiming a little bit more from overall quality from blend to blend rather than a brand consistency or a palate consistency from blend to blend.
Yeah, for this specific product we are. But when our Origin series comes out, we will spend the time, consistency, quality to replicate that Origin series when it comes out. So where one distillery does it this way, another one does it this way, we're going to kind of represent many of those different paths with our releases in the next couple of years with those 4 different blends or brands of collaboration, fusion, discovery, and Origin. So we're just going to touch a little bit on all of them, but all the time and attention that goes to each one. Don't be fooled, we have 4 different brands coming out, but we focus on each of them individually as their own brand, and they could stand separately if that was the one thing coming out of this facility.
And you're not trying to be anybody else, you're BBC.
Exactly.
Any questions? Go to discovery.
Sure.
Which now is really about also about the art of blending.
And this is a very interesting one because we were given, in our opinion, just such a gift to work with all these high-end products, and we could go in any direction we wanted as far as percentage, because we knew this was going to be our high-end blend. There were really no limitations set on this blend. So we had our core Kentucky bourbons, and we were just kind of given free rein to explore all of the options. And
you were fortunate enough, we have everything from 5-year-old source to 15-year-old sourced bourbon and whiskey in our inventory, where we can really have the opportunity to really pull from each one of those different profiles and come up with something very special. So this discovery doesn't have anything made here at this facility. It truly is the name of the brand, Discovery. We have went out and we have procured this bourbon, whether it be in casks or totes, anything. We have really spent the time and educating ourselves where the bourbon's coming from, getting samples. Is a bourbon we want to represent in one of our brands in the future, and we have put together a great portfolio of source bourbons here on site that we have.
So here's a funny part of the story. So a lot of this was trying to develop products that fit for us in certain price points too. So this one we started and said, all right, we really need to develop something that fits that niche between kind of the 89 to 99. And we kept going back to the team, and they kept coming back and saying, we can't do it. Not with this. It's the stuff that we have. It's too expensive. It's too good. We just don't like what we've been putting out at that. So we said, okay, forget about the price. Produce the best blend from the inventory we have, and we're very lucky to be able to acquire this over the last several years. And this was the result. So just make the best thing you can possibly make.
I think when you taste this, there's something really interesting to point out. It's the same concept that I think all of us really enjoy. Its core is in a certain age range, and then we put a little bit of the 5-year in there and a little bit older as kind of these light touches. So you'll see a tiny bit of 5-year bourbon and a tiny bit of almost 14-year bourbon on there, with the core being around 11 and a half years. And it really shoots for that complexity that we're always have in our heads, this flavor goal. So I think we really achieved it on this one.
And this one's gas strength.
Gas strength.
So to that point, though, I mean, eventually, you know, the barrels for this, of course, they're not going to exist anymore. This blend essentially is not going to exist anymore, but is this a flavor profile moving forward? Not necessarily for the Discovery series, but maybe for Bardstown Bourbon Company as a whole. Is this a profile that you guys are interested in maybe recreating or achieving again in the future? Could we see this being maybe a brand standard from the company in the future?
It's interesting because I think our thought process initially these are blends delineated with numbers. You know, this is Discovery number 1. Whether or not, I think we're so young in the game of doing this, I don't know if we have a flavor profile identity on the Discovery line. Right. I will say I love this concept of a little bit of young and a little bit of old kind of peppering on, but it could go in any direction at this point.
My 2 cents would be strive to be better every single year.
Absolutely.
So whether that's through quality, taste, if we can come up with something better than this Discovery next year, we're going to come up with it. So even if this is really popular, we got something better, our goal is to produce the best quality Discovery Fusion that we can. So every year. So I think that's what speaks testament to this team. We don't get comfortable with a certain profile. We don't limit ourselves. So that's why everybody's involved, because we got people that haven't been in the bourbon industry that are really lending great advice and outside the box thinking, and it really aids us into developing our final product, which a lot of other places don't go by. So I think it's very much an advantage to Bardstown Bourbon Company how we're doing this right now.
I like the fact that you're not tied to ages.
Right.
I once did a bourbon tasting, a blind bourbon tasting for some friends of mine, where I took a 20-year-old rye and a 20-year-old bourbon and asked them which one was which, and nobody could tell me the difference because it was so dominated by the barrel. I always tell people older is not better, better is better. And I really like what you're doing in the Fusion series, because that young whiskey really does bring some nice flavors to that older whiskey.
So great point on the blinds. So we didn't bring this up. So when I facilitated these tastings for everybody, I would be the facilitator behind these tastings in the classrooms. All this was judged off true blinds. They had no idea what was in each of these out of those 28s. I even threw finished product in there off other people's bourbon out on the market to try to throw them off. And to no avail, it didn't throw this team off, but I would even throw just random stuff in there. Kentucky Owl, Dad's Hat. I would throw random stuff in the blinds to see if I could trick them. And I just couldn't trick anybody.
This one did come down to a tiebreaker, though. There were 2 at the very end. If you want to take a guess of which man came in and decided the tiebreak for this, he just kind of went right in. It was done, and then we had Discovery.
They were all set like. Well, to the question you was talking about
discovery bold, I don't think we're looking at having the same profile time after time after time. We're developing something that's really unique and good quality each time. It's going to kind of go back to the single barrel program.
Right.
You don't have the same flavor, same taste, barrel after barrel after barrel. You vary a little bit. So we're fine with the variations, but the quality's got to stay there.
So you're more interested in quality and I think to a certain degree customer retention too, just in terms of, ABC has been really good. DEF could very well be just as good because they know what they're doing and they have a proven track record.
Right. So a few years ago at the Bourbon Festival, we took a wild idea. We were going to take the best product that each distillery in the festival had, mixed them together to make a festival product. It was not a festival product. You can take good and make bad out of it. So they don't always go
Well, I'm more excited about your Fusion product than I am about your Discovery product because I really think that the Fusion excites me more than the Discovery. Discovery is just another blend of sourced whiskey to me. But this Fusion is really interesting. It's very good. I don't get a lot of that young whiskey flavor to it. I get a lot of nice little nuances. I like it.
Well, that's kind of the point.
To hear that.
That's kind of the point.
Would you guess it's 2-year-old primarily?
No, I wouldn't guess that it was 60% 2-year-old, and that's good. But that proves. Like I wrote a blog the other day about blended whiskey, and back in the old days they used to do a lot of things. One thing, it didn't have as much neutral spirit. They made good blended whiskeys. This proves that even though it's not a blended whiskey, it's a bourbon. You can use younger whiskey and make really good whiskey just using some, a little bit of old whiskey.
It was all about the balance aspect.
Right,
That's really nailing down the young versus the old, because we very well could have came out with a 2-year bourbon at this point, but we really wanted to showcase our abilities as a team and really come out with this blend instead of coming out with a core product at 2 years. So
we also don't have any financial pressures. Right. So from that standpoint, we don't have to race to market with anything. We're not trying to push anything out quickly. We're really just trying to create the best products that we possibly can.
Well, I got to say, if this is 60% pure all 2-year-old product, I think 10 years from now, when it's 60% your 2-year-old product and 40% your 10-year-old product, it's going to be even better.
But at that point, Fusion Series might be obsolete. It could just very well be Bardstown Bourbon Company. But my point is that at that point you're going for the quality distillate instead of the quality blend.
Well,
right.
But if the quality blends are always interesting like this, why would you want to discontinue it?
They're showing what they can do with blending.
Right. They all could live. I mean, they all can exist for indefinitely too. So.
Right. Well, in theory, a sourced whiskey should be the very best whiskey that you could get, because if you don't like it, why did you buy it?
You can say no to it. So I can say for every type we have in there, we've turned down samples that we've had. So it's basically a blending process. So we get samples and we like that one. We don't.
I have no complaints about a sourced whiskey as long as you let me know that you're not claiming it for your own.
Exactly.
Which I don't think you all have ever done. Which I don't.
No. We won't. So you'll see. You'll even see origin on it. So Tennessee's not. You'll see it. So
you've heard some of the conversation about the products that are coming out, about the newest collaboration for the Bardstown Bourbon Company. But I wanted to make sure too that we sat down with the people who made it all happen. And you've heard some of these folks before. You've heard David. You've heard John. You've heard Steve on the podcast before when we were here for the Bardstown Bourbon Company episode. But we have some new folks who are here. So I'm going to let you all introduce yourselves as well.
I'm Dan Calloway. I'm the Director of Bourbon Education, Guest Experience, and Product Development here at Bardstown Bourbon Company.
Suzanne Pfeiffer Pavitt, the proprietor and founder of Pfeiffer Pavitt Winery in the great Napa Valley, California.
So Suzanne, you kind of made, to a degree, this newest collaboration release happen because your wine was the kind of the core for what this new flavor profile was going to be, right? So did you kind of have a palate for bourbon before you became associated with the folks here at Bardstown Bourbon Company?
I'm a professional consumer. I am a fan of adult spirits, shall we say, or adult beverages, and I do love a nice bourbon amongst a few other things. Obviously, wine is my primary drink of choice, but yes, the answer is I did enjoy bourbon. I'm a Southern girl, so you're not going to get too far away from that.
Sure. Steve and John, what was it about this this core spirit that kind of excited you before it went into the finishing process? What was it that stood out amongst some of the other products, some of the other barrels that you had to choose from?
This is Steve Nally, Master Distiller. I think what stood out primarily was quality aspect. We, talked with Suzanne and got to know her and know that her product is top notch. It's a premium product.
Right.
And that's what we wanted to introduce into the barrels that her product came out of. So, we talked, went back and forth, and decided that this was a good connection, a good marriage, that,
Sure.
It was good to join this and get this product in the barrels and age it.
Right.
I think there's a couple things for me. I think being, it was a high corn bourbon at 84% corn. I think that sweetness that was blended in the high corn balanced very well with Susan's wine, and that it was a bourbon we had a lot of inventory of too. So we could pick from a very large inventory the very best barrels that we could find, and that's where Steve came in to really use his expertise and pick out what barrels would be utilized best for this product also. So.
Dan, what was your kind of influence on this product coming to life too?
My influence was in the later stages, certainly. So we would test it as it developed in barrel, because that always is the question.
Sure.
that we come across is, how do you know when to pull it? How do you know when it's done? So, as it moved along towards its final goal, especially after a year, checking in on it and seeing how the product developed, which
and folks have heard up to this point too the fact that, even though you've established the end of the product being in the barrel at 19 months, Steve has said that, they're still holding a little bit back for a couple of months, maybe to see if y'all had something else that could go into it. Maybe, in Steve's words, you were wrong.
Well, it was a judgment call that, between all of us, that we kept gauging and testing, tasting, and we reached the point that we mutually agreed that, okay, it's as good as it's going to get. But, we're all human. We're all possibly, most of us can't make a mistake, but there's one or two in here that can. But it's a judgment. And then, if you save a little back and find out that, hey, it's reached this point, it's not to say what we pulled is bad. It's excellent. But, maybe it's taking on some other characters that might make a little difference in it. So the next time we do a run, we will know, maybe do a little different.
Sure.
I think it really represents our commitment to quality and innovation here. We are very happy with it at 19 months. Let's hold a couple back, see what it does. Now we have baseline data going forward with this product a little older, so we can continue to grow, we continue to improve on our product, kind of like we spoke of earlier upstairs.
Right.
So our commitment is very much to innovation, quality, and transparency here at Bardstown Bourbon Company.
Sure.
No, I just was going to add that we really enjoyed the product as it kept evolving. So it was this exploration, and it came to this certain point. I think we said about the 15-month point where we were all very excited, and then each month the flavor profile just kept increasing, and we got to a point saying, this is a perfect collaboration, if you will, of the Cabernet flavor profile presenting itself. And so ideally, we said, let's give it a try, but it's always good to not have regrets. So we've stilled a little away in the case that we reserve the right to change our mind.
It's all subjective.
It's all subjective. Yes.
David, what has been the most exciting for you in terms of like this new business venture, this new opportunity for you, not just as, you know, an enthusiast in this industry, but also as, you know, an innovator in the bourbon industry, in the whiskey industry?
I think the most exciting thing has been building the team that we have, and Suzanne is the newest member of that team, you know, in our collaborative distilling program. But it's the most exciting thing has been about the team, and it's been about the people. You're talking to them obviously here with Steve and John and Dan, but we've built an incredible culinary team, beverage team, a distilling team, and now all of those teams are coming together to make these exceptional products. And
Absolutely.
I think that's one of the things that's so exciting, and what you're going to see here is that there's an energy here, there's a creative energy, and it's different from what has been and what bourbon has been in the past. And
Sure.
so I think you're going to see a lot coming from us.
So how did your relationship with Suzanne begin? Where did that origin story happen?
We've actually started, a friend of ours who was a mutual acquaintance and on our board made the introduction and said, you know, you guys have to meet each other. There's similarities. You're both type A. You're both Virgos. You're both crazy. You know, there was some of that. He's also like that as well. I'm talking about Jeff Hopmeyer, who I'm sure you know well. But that's where the introduction began.
Sure.
And we, you know, we all have a passion for making exceptional things.
Sure. Yeah, and having tried this new expression too, I feel like it is exceptional. I think that you guys really did do a fantastic job, individually, collaboratively, to make something that will achieve the heights that you all were reaching for too. Let's talk too, not just about this single product, but about what's coming up in the future. You know, they've heard us tasting it. They've heard the conversation around it, not just how it was developed or the blends that went into it, but just why did this become an aspiration in the Bardstown Bourbon Company? Why did the Fusion series and the Discovery series come to be? How did it come to be too?
I mean, the story is exactly the same as the story of this place itself. It was an evolution. I mean, there was never a starting point in which we said, this is the idea. It was a series of ideas that continually evolved. And just like this place has evolved from its origins in the collaborative distilling program and making custom whiskey, and then, you know, seeing the potential here when the law changed in Kentucky to have a full restaurant and a bar, and then building those teams and having those teams work together. That's where the foundation began. And so, the story of the products is all about working together, collaboration, making great things, and then being able to transition from where we are now to what's coming in the future. And Discovery and Fusion and the Origin products all tell that story. It's a journey. It's a bourbon journey to those products.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, I think one of the things that's exciting, and John, you just touch on it a little bit more too, is just the process. Because I think one of the things that amazes me, again, talking about the people, right here you have, I think we balance art and science beautifully.
Sure.
And you've got the art and the history in Steve Nally, and you have a lot of the science and kind of the younger engineering in John Hargrove. You've got the creativity of Dan Calloway. Yeah. Right. But you really have this kind of this great juxtaposition in Steve and John, and you see that throughout everything we're doing. That's really forms the foundation of the company.
Yeah, and I think to Dave's point, we all come from different backgrounds. We have Steve, who's been in the industry, who is a rock for us to learn from here. He lends us knowledge to where we can take outside the box thinking and apply it and develop something here that's never been developed anywhere else before. Like I said, we don't have a master blender on site.
Right.
We have a master team on site. So we utilize the culinary team. We utilize the food and beverage team. We utilize our partners such as Suzanne. So we pull from a lot of different aspects of this industry.
And this is just the core of the group. I mean, we spread out to the beverage team has multiple people. John's team has all the workers in the distillery with an average of 15 years experience. We rely on their experience to get the job done. So it's not just us, it's the whole team, the whole group of people here at BBC.
It's collaboration. It's the core of the BBC.
That's exactly right.
So that about does it for this portion of the episode. Thank you all so much for sitting down. I just wanted to make sure that we had something a little bit more specific and that you all had a clearer voice when it came to these products that are about to come out. So thank you all so much for.
Thank you for our pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. So I hope that you enjoyed that conversation about the Bardstown Bourbon Company. You can find more information, of course, about them on the World Wide Web and on all social media channels. Just search for the Bardstown Bourbon Company and you will find plenty of information about them. I want to say one thing before we move on two things actually, before we move on to the review of these three products. First off, if you have not gotten a chance to go and visit them yet, absolutely 100% do. They have a wonderful restaurant on site, the Bottle and Bond Kitchen, and it's delicious. One of the best dining experiences, not just in Bardstown, Kentucky, but in the state of Kentucky. I mean, just a fabulous place to go and enjoy some food. And also, secondly, I want to say thank you, of course, to the Bardstown Bourbon Company for not just sending us these samples, but also for their incredible hospitality and all of the wonderful ways that they made us feel like family when we were able to go and spend the day with them out in Bardstown. So on that note, let's jump into these reviews. We are going to start out, I think, with the lowest proof one, which is the Fusion series.
I believe so.
Correct? Yeah.
It's got the lightest color, so I'm assuming that's probably it.
Yeah. So you've heard about it already, but just kind of as a recap, on the Fusion series, I'm reading from this beautiful little booklet that they sent us as well. It is a blend of 3 different bourbons. 42% is a 2-year and 1-month Bardstown Bourbon Company distillate, which is really fantastic. 18% is a Bardstown Bourbon Company 2-year, 3-month distillate as well. I need to point out as well, the first distillate, the majority, is a rye mash bill, and the second one is a wheated mash bill. And then the final 40% in the blend is an 11-year, 7-month-old Kentucky bourbon with a mash bill of 74% corn, 18% rye, and 18% malted barley. It is a proof of 98.9. It will be available in May, and the suggested retail price is $60.
I like that they added their own distillate. You said it's got a wheat and
yeah, it's got
rye?
a wheat and a rye, so this is technically a 4-grain bourbon. And I think that sweetness is coming through as well. There's a little bit of citrusiness to it. There's kind of a marshmallow note that I'm finding as well on the nose. Not quite toasted, but just kind of a marshmallow note.
Yeah, I'm getting that. It's kind of like almost like a potpourri mixed with like a just normal bourbon nose. I mean, it's definitely got some of the vanilla and the cherry in there as well, but not super heavy.
I'm definitely picking up on some of that cherry.
Yeah.
Too.
It's definitely got a fruitiness about it, which, for their, entry, more approachable, to have some of the more standard bourbon notes is probably a great idea. That is good. It's got a little bit more heat than I thought it was going to have, but for somebody that tends to lean higher proof, I like that.
A little bit more heat, a little bit more corn. But I think that what I'm tasting when I say corn is probably a little bit of the youthfulness from what they've put in and of their own distillate, excuse me. But it doesn't seem like it's to the detriment of the final blend itself.
No, it's not. And I love that they added their own stuff because there's so many people starting out with MGP and they kind of put your own stamp on it, even if you're blending, is just phenomenal.
Yeah. Now that it's opening up on the nose, I'm starting to get kind of a floral note to it, kind of like a tulip almost. It's a very specific flower that I'm finding.
It's good.
Yeah, man.
I think I do like the palate better on it though. It does have like a lot more of the standard bourbon stuff going on with the palate. The nose is elevated, though.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I think that the palate seems to take everything in a little bit better direction. Hey, man.
How are you?
Doing well. Come sit down.
Oh, I will.
Sorry. I'm very sorry that this was so last minute.
Oh. I'm tired.
Yeah.
Hey, man.
What's up? Oh, okay. Oh, I forgot about the headphones.
Yeah. Pour you a little bit of this. Just try it. But we'll, like, technically bring you in on the second pour.
Okay.
That we've got. Hey, man.
Hey.
Hey. Hi.
It's pretty good. It is very hot, though.
I think it is hot, too, but I just think that it is not being... It's not overpowering some of the sweeter notes or some of those, more refined notes to it, maybe.
No, it definitely has like a little bit of nuance to it, which is great, because I think that's probably been my biggest complaint with some of the new distilleries that have popped up in Kentucky. It's just a fantastic one-note bourbon, and there's nothing wrong with that, but whoever blended this was looking for that nuance because they wanted it to stand out as just a more expensive, refined bourbon.
Yeah.
And that's great, because we need more of that.
The finish, we haven't even talked about the finish. The finish is one of the more interesting parts of this as well. I'm finding more of a minty note to it as the finish is going along.
I could get behind that.
Yeah.
It's not quite like it's not like a mint julep or anything, but like kind of that.
No.
I don't even know how to explain it. It's not even necessarily mint, but like that feeling when you get after you had a mint, you kind of breathe out. And it's kind of that chilling effect a little bit. You get some of that.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that this is a really good introduction to the Bardstown Bourbon Company and where their product is going to be taking them in the next few years. Sure, this is blended with another product, but at $60, basically kind of a mid-tier range, not premium, I think that this is going to really get people interested in what the Bardstown Bourbon Company is doing, and will definitely define them in the future as a mainstay in the bourbon world.
Absolutely. It's making me anxious for more releases from them already. I've not even had the other two on the table yet. So,
well, speaking of the other two, while we were in the middle of that review, Curtis showed up as well.
What's up, guys?
Hey, Kurt. How are you, buddy?
Oh, pretty good.
Good, yeah.
Speaking on that last one, though, you guys were saying mint. I'm getting like even on the nose, a mint ice cream. It's more of... That's what I'm getting. It's like I walked into Cold Stone Creamery or like Graders, and that's what I'm kind of getting.
All right, so this next one that we're looking at is Collaborative Series number 1. This is the Pfeiffer Pavitt Reserve. This was a bourbon that, again, as you've heard, that was finished in Pfeiffer Pavitt wine barrels and Cabernet barrels. And it's 107 proof. It is technically, the base of it is Tennessee bourbon. As I said, 107 proof. Suggested retail price on this one is $124.99. It is currently available in Kentucky, Florida, and North Carolina, but it will be coming soon to Indiana, Tennessee, and Illinois. We'll talk about the tasting notes in a second here too that they've provided. We didn't actually do it on the last one. We'll see how our notes line up with what they say. The nose definitely smells very wine-like.
Yeah, I definitely get the wine on it.
It's those like berry, grapey notes that you typically get. I don't talk about wine very well. I talk about bourbon well, but wine, it's kind of a different thing for me. But you can really smell the wine influence on the nose on this one.
Yeah, you're getting kind of the dark berry, the grape. You're getting some of those leather tobacco-y notes, I think, as well from the Cabernet. That's what I'm feeling.
And the palate is similar to that, but it's not quite that. The finish leans a little bit more towards a wine, but I think on the palate, it's just really bold.
It is, yeah.
It's really in your face. Not in a bad way, by any means. It's just, you know, you're drinking something with a lot of character to it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think one of my favorite parts about this is I have a lot of problems with wine finished bourbons kind of having a drying effect as it goes towards the end of the palate. This doesn't have it at all.
I get just a little bit of dryness.
Really?
Not a whole lot, but just a hair to it.
But you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah,
some
absolutely.
of them, it's just like it immediately takes everything out of your mouth. It's crazy. But this I like it. It does have quite a bit of the wine influence on the finish. That's where I'm getting it mostly.
It's really, I'm getting it bookend. So
I am too.
On the nose, you get the wine. On the finish, you get the wine. In the middle, that's where you're getting the bold flavor of bourbon.
It's very berry heavy on the palate, I would say. It's like berries and toasted marshmallows. I'm not getting a whole lot of quote unquote typical bourbon flavors.
No, I'm not either.
But that being said, that is not to the detriment of this product either. I think that this is one of the most interesting finished bourbons that I've ever had. And, you know, the price is a little bit high for some people. I totally understand it. But what you're paying for is, you know, the fact that it's gone through that extra step of production. So if you have the money for it, I would say, yeah, I would probably shell out the cash for this one. If not, I would say maybe try it at a bar. You know?
Yeah, I definitely would recommend trying it at a bar, unless you are really, as long as you have the money, but also specifically looking for a really quality finished bourbon. If you were just like, oh, I'm trying to get into finished stuff,
this is not it.
Yeah, like don't chill that money.
This is definitely a next step in finished products. So I'm on board with this one. I like it quite a bit.
Oh, it's really good.
Yeah. Their tasting notes, they say it's voluptuous, succulent, has bold notes of plums, milk chocolate, and blackberries. I could definitely see the milk chocolate and the plums. Don't know if I'm so much picking up on the blackberries necessarily. Like I said, I'm tasting berry flavors, but I don't know if specifically for me, it's blackberries.
See, I wasn't getting the milk chocolate. I was more the plums, the black cherry.
I think the milk chocolate for me...
Or the blackberry. Sorry.
Yeah, I think the milk chocolate for me is kind of in terms of the mouthfeel. So that creaminess that I'm feeling, maybe I'm interpreting that in the wrong way. Maybe I am actually tasting milk chocolate, but what it's being translated to on my palate is just a creaminess. I don't know.
I could get that,
but,
yeah. I'm on board with the mouthfeel of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I'm the same way. I'm not getting like an overwhelming chocolate, but when you're talking about the mouthfeel portion of it, I could get behind that.
For sure. So again, recommend if you have the money for it. I definitely think
it's very voluptuous.
It is indeed voluptuous. I agree. That was a very good tasting note that they provided. Okay, so we are now moving on to Discovery Series number 1, the final of the 3 new releases from the Bardstown Bourbon Company. This is 5% of a Kentucky bourbon that's aged 13 years, 75% of Kentucky bourbon aged 11, 19% of Kentucky aged 10 years, and a 10% that is a 5-year-old product. Suggested retail price is $129.99, and the proof is 121.21. It is available in June in Kentucky, Florida, and Northern California, and it will be coming soon to Indiana, Tennessee, and Illinois.
Before I even nose it, I just want to point out how oily this bourbon is. The legs on it are insane.
Oh, they're phenomenal.
It's not even like legs so much as it is just a solid coating all the way around the glass.
Yeah, absolutely.
All 3 of those noses have such a unique...
They absolutely do.
...nose to it.
Yeah, I totally agree.
It's just light and fresh, even with it being like 120, like a higher proof.
And the oldest product in it is 13 years, but the majority of the product in it is 11 years. So you would think that there would be a little bit more oak that's coming through, a little bit more of the age, but it's not necessarily showing through. Not that that's a bad thing. Not that it's not showing the charred character of it and everything. It's just, it's a lot more airy than I think I would have anticipated going into it. There's some floral notes in it for sure on the nose. Kind of like just a like fresh cut grass, like some springiness to it,
like wind through your hair, kind of.
I know, I think that's totally fair. There's a like almost like a straw note that I'm kind of finding on the nose as well. It's just all very earthy.
Yeah, it's like you're kind of out on the farm a little bit.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
The combine, you just harvest it. It's like right after harvest, I feel.
Right, a little bit of caramel on the nose too.
Yeah.
Wow. That finish.
That palate.
It goes and goes and goes.
Oh my goodness. Oh, wow.
That's insane.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
This is where the age comes through. The age and the proof is on the palate and the finish. The palate starts off a little bit slow, but then it kind of rolls into all of these really big, bold flavors that I'm a huge fan of. I'm really enjoying this one.
Yeah, and I'm super surprised too, because like the proof doesn't show until it starts to kind of like sit in your throat a little bit, and that Kentucky hug sets in.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of spikes up a little bit, which is great because I know there's so many people that the second that they take a drink of high proof bourbon, they're just like, whoa, nope, immediately it's not for them. And this one, it kind of sits in, gives you that warm, feeling in your chest. It's really interesting. I think this is going to be one of those that I could probably open this bottle and go back to it every 2 weeks, and I might have a different experience.
I could definitely see that happening. I'm getting a little bit more heat on my second sip than I was on the first. A little bit more fruitiness to it as well. There's kind of like almost a strawberry note to it that I'm picking up on the palate. But yeah, man, that finish is absolutely phenomenal.
It's literally, it just rolls into that finish. And the heat on it, I don't even want to consider it heat. It's just like
a spice.
Like a spice and warming feel. It's nothing too overpowering.
Yeah.
It's really solid.
My only drawback on this is that it is a little bit dry on as it's moving towards the finish, which is that's my only complaint. I think otherwise it's absolutely delicious. I can understand why it's at this price point.
I can too. And I think it's good too because there's not a whole lot of people that are, entering into bourbon that are thinking, I'm willing to drop this kind of money on a bottle.
Yeah.
So when you have people that are experienced and looking for the nuance and the long finishes and the high proof point, charging a little more seems reasonable because they know what they're getting into,
This reminds me quite a bit of some Kentucky Owl releases.
Yeah, I even got... It's not necessarily like a Booker's note, but just the kind of heavy spice you get from a Booker's. I get that. It is a totally different spice, though. I have to point that out. There is not, in my opinion, a huge amount of nuttiness on this that you usually get with Booker's, but as far as like a kind of a spice note, more of like a baking spice almost.
Yeah, I think so too.
I get that quite a bit.
And it's not a spiciness. It's not like like a pepper or like kind of that kind of
spice. It's a spice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally get that. Their tasting notes were the hints of youthful bright spice and deep oak age add layers of depth and complexity. I think that's kind of an understatement, honestly. I think that there's lots of depth and complexity to this one. But man, it's interesting and probably a good thing that at the price point, it's the best out of the three.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's the best out of the three. Do you guys agree?
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
All right.
Make sure I wasn't alone on that
Glad we talked about that.
Yeah, me too. Okay. Clear that up. Well, again, before we wrap up this episode, I just want to say thank you so much to the Bardstown Bourbon Company for sending us these samples. Very gracious of you. We look forward to all of the things that you have coming in the future. I think that you guys have great things ahead of you. We got a couple things left to do before we get out of here. First and foremost is everybody's favorite segment, Tips and Bits, where we recommend stuff for people. Doesn't have to be bourbon or whiskey or whatever. Who wants to go first?
Before we all go, can we just recommend In-Game as like a group?
Oh, that was mine, so yes.
Okay.
I've seen it twice now.
Really?
I saw it on Friday and I saw it on Sunday.
I haven't seen it yet, but I've been told it's really good.
I won't spoil a single thing for you.
I've not seen it. I literally have tickets twice this week. Yeah, like I'm going 2 different days.
Oh, I thought you meant like I had tickets twice and you didn't go. I was like, what happened?
Wasted money.
Tuesday and Thursday, I have tickets to go see it at 2 different theaters.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's great, man.
Is that your
collective, I think.
I think mine, I mean, it's definitely mine. Look, man, they made $1 billion this weekend. I mean,
that's a lot of money.
It's ridiculous.
It's insane. The movie theater next to, like, near my place is staying open 24 hours just to show more.
Goodness
oh my
gracious.
That's crazy. I've never seen them do that. Avatar came out and everybody's like, oh yeah, it's pretty cool. You know, it made tons of money and they didn't stay open 24 hours. Endgame comes out and there's people waiting in line.
How is Avatar the highest grossing movie of all time?
That's wild.
James Cameron.
I mean, it's good.
Yeah.
It was the effects of it and everything. It was
fair.
It was the technology that went into making the movie.
Okay. That's fair. All right. Do you have anything else to add to Tips and Bits?
I think that's pretty solid.
Yeah. Avengers Endgame. Go check it out.
It's going to be great.
I'm trying to think of if there's anything else.
That's been about all for my life this past week has been getting hyped up for Endgame. So
it has crashed my social media.
Yeah, mine too.
I can't see anything.
Yeah.
The second I see Endgame or any of that, I've got even filters set to like not show me any of that stuff.
Oh, I mean, like there was a solid 2 days where I mean, aside from like podcast stuff, I didn't even go on the internet.
Yeah,
because I just didn't want to learn anything about it.
Well, it was either the Endgame or Taylor Swift. So
yeah.
Both of those.
I haven't watched that music video yet.
It's good.
All right, fair enough. Well, that about does it for us. Where can people find you all on social media if they would like to do that?
On Instagram, you can find me at KurtCon. On Twitter, Kurt_Con15.
All right, I'm on Instagram at The Bourbon Finder, and that's it. I need to be better at keeping up with stuff.
We'll get you there.
I'm working on it.
I know you are. Personally, I am at PRitter1492 on all social media channels. If you'd like to follow up with the show, we are at My Bourbon Pod on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Go follow us. Share some posts. Tell your friends about the show as well. That really does help us out. Give us a 5-star rate and review on iTunes. Maybe we'll start reading out some reviews on air, too. So if you'd like to leave a review, we would definitely love to see that. 5 stars, please. You can check out all of our apparel and merch at bourbonshop.threadless.com. We have free shipping going on right now with the code FREESHIPBC19. So be sure to do that. We have the Facebook group going pretty strong right now. This is My Bourbon Group. I do a live stream every Thursday night on YouTube. It's youtube.com/This Is My Bourbon Podcast, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're a day late? I don't really know. I don't know how that stuff works. Anyway, youtube.com/This Is My Bourbon Podcast. Every Thursday night, I do live streams over there. And then finally, patreon.com/My Bourbon Podcast. For as little as $1 a month, you can help support the show, keep things going. And that really is important to us. And we thank everybody who is a patron of the show. Mm-hmm. Thank you all so much for listening. We really do appreciate it. We will see you next week, but until then, I'm Perry.
I'm Curtis.
And I'm Swan.
And this is My Bourbon Podcast.